TMZ Live, Harvey Levin here.
I'm Elex Michaelson, in for Charles today.
So, big development, maybe game-changing development in the Wendy Williams guardianship case. Wendy went to Lenox Hill Hospital yesterday and took a test to determine if she functions in a cognitive way, where she knows, where she has a memory, where she is present and with it. Wendy Williams was asked 10 questions by a psychiatrist. She aced the test. She answered all 10 correctly. And that is hugely important because Wendy is not just under a guardianship. She is under one that she says is akin to a prison, where she is confined to the 5th floor, the memory unit of a facility in New York City, where she can't even leave the floor without permission from an attendant. She can't take calls when people call in. That can't happen. Can't use the internet. She is not allowed visitors. And she has been this way for many, many, many months. And she wants out. So this is a huge deal that a psychiatrist said she aced this test.
Because the whole point of her being on the memory floor is because she's supposed to not be able to remember anything. They asked her 10 questions to check her memory, and she got all of them right. This is some video that we have gotten. Harvey did an entire documentary with Wendy, talking to her. You've been in regular communication with her about this, and you've also been in communication with somebody who's very close with her, who we're talking to today.
Yeah, indeed. Her name is Gina Lisa Monterosa. Now, Gina is really, really critical in this because she has been helping Wendy navigate her circumstances and actually helped engineer this trip to the hospital with a backdrop of an NYPD investigation now, an Adult Protective Services investigation now. So a lot is changing, and Gina is joining us. Gina, we are so happy to have you here. Welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Harvey. Elex, thank you so much.
So what do you make of the results here? How important is it?
It's big. It's big news. I think it's something that everybody, the public, has been waiting for, wanting answers, myself as well. It just really states a big case and a very factual case that Wendy's not incapacitated.
So what's next?
Well, right now, Wendy's in the hospital. We're waiting to see, what the next tests are. To my understanding, she may be going under some more tests. And hopefully we're trying to see if she can go into a less restricted environment.
Well, that's interesting you say that because my understanding from talking to Wendy and others is that you want something not just less restrictive, you want to end the guardianship.
We do. Unfortunately, we do have to go through the courts. There's a lot right now that's going on. Right now, Wendy told me she can't pick her own attorney. She has to stay with the attorney that she has right now. Wendy was interested in picking other attorneys to come on board to help her. It doesn't seem that that's going to actually happen. And so we just have to see and wait how this attorney she currently has, Sadat Salami, who's been very active in trying to see to get her a step closer to getting her to a less restricted environment.
You say she's still at the hospital. How long are you expecting her to stay at the hospital, and what kind of tests are we talking about?
It's day by day right now. I think she has to go through another eval as well, just to kind of seal the deal. I think it's a little more extensive is my understanding, but that may not be true. I don't know. Everything has just been up in the air as of today, but right now she's safe in a safe environment where she is protected and she's not confined. And there's people on her side, and it's the hospital.
So shoot me down here if you want, but my recon is she's at the hospital not necessarily because of additional tests. She does not want to go back to that memory unit.
No. There are more tests coming. It's my understanding there's one today. I don't know if it's going to actually happen, but no, obviously, clearly, nobody would want to go there. Wendy doesn't want to go there. She doesn't want to go back to a confined space. She doesn't want to go onto a locked unit. No, she definitely does not want to do that. And she feels very protected at the hospital.
Can you talk also about Wendy's media strategy with all this? We know that she did the documentary with Harvey. She called into the Breakfast Club today. She's supposed to be on The View later this week. What's the thinking there?
There's no strategy. I am not PR, but we do take things day by day. I mean, Harvey, who has been, on the front of all of this and being probably the most person that actually helped us get this to the world. He's in contact with us. We're in contact with him. He helps us, get out important information that the public needs to know. There's no strategy. There's no book I'm following. There isn't anything.
Gina, the question that I'm asked more than any other is why is the guardianship, the judge and the guardian, why are they trying to hold on so tight? Why are they not just looking at her? Because, look, there's some common sense involved here. When you listen to her, when you talk to her, everybody I know who's interacted with her says she's back to the old Wendy. Why do you think the guardianship is hanging on the way they are and saying she needs to be in this? She's not well. She's getting worse. It's sort of like, who do you believe, me or your lying eyes?
Just looking at everything, I mean, clearly Wendy doesn't belong on a locked floor. What would be the only answer? The only answer would be this whole lifetime lawsuit. I really believe that maybe the guardian wants to save her reputation. She wants to clear her name and, holding lifetime responsible for the outcome of that documentary and not herself, because obviously she was under a guardianship when this happened.
In other words, that the guardian wasn't there to protect and stop her when they were filming, when Wendy was clearly under the influence.
Correct. And, the guardian, in my opinion, put Wendy at harm. She was not the one that put the checks and balances to ensure that Wendy was safe during this lifetime documentary. That was her responsibility. It was nobody else's.
Obviously, sobriety has been good for Wendy and her memory. If she's out of the guardianship, if she's out of this restrictive environment, what steps is she going to take to stay clean and sober?
Wendy is clean and sober now. And Wendy will be taking her sobriety very seriously. And we are going over many steps to ensure that Wendy will remain, alcohol-free. This is something that she understands. This is something that her niece understands. We all understand the importance of making sure that there are steps and there are barriers put in place, that Wendy is protected and, no one is going to be, an influence, and she's not going to be in a situation where, she will start drinking again. I mean, that is a priority. That is a high priority on Wendy's end.
Gina, I got a call yesterday from the NYPD, and they wanted my impressions of Wendy. So it sounds like they're doing, and I know they were at the facility yesterday. It sounds like they're looking into this. Adult Protective Services in New York is looking into this. Do you know what the status of that is, and have you spoken with them?
Right now, everything is open and ongoing. Nothing is closed. It's not closed. There's still other steps that need to be taken, and I'm more than sure that Wendy will exercise those steps.
Has the Guardian said anything to Wendy with everything that's going on? I mean, that we have a documentary and the NYPD and Adult Protective Services and a psychiatric test and all these things. Has the Guardian interacted with her at all to talk about this?
No, it's my understanding Wendy said the Guardian showed up at the hospital, didn't ask how she's doing, didn't ask what's going on.
Did she talk to Wendy?
Not at all. She just stood outside of her room, according to Wendy.
What's going on here? I mean, why wouldn't the Guardian interact with her?
I think the Guardian is guarded, if that's the right thing to say. I think she feels that anything that she says towards Wendy is going to be put under a microscope, and she may be criticized for it. But that's sad and unfortunate, because to me, that means that she hasn't developed a relationship with Wendy. She is not guarding Wendy. She's not looking for what's in her best interest, because a good guardian will have a relationship with their ward. A good guardian would be worried about their ward. A good guardian would want their ward to be happy. And so if there's a communication breakdown, you need not be that guardian, because how are you going to work in her best interest?
Yeah.
I mean, that's astounding to think about, the fact that she went all the way to the hospital, is standing outside the room, and won't even talk to Wendy.
It's bizarre. It is bizarre. Gina, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. I appreciate the both of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. It is just, it's hard for me to understand what's going on with the judge, what's going on with the guardian. I mean, the guardian should be interacting with her. That's the point. And she's a stranger. And it's odd.
It does feel like things are going the right way for Wendy, though.
Yeah, it does. We're taking a break.
When we come back, the star of Ghost Adventures, whose wife was apparently arrested for hiring a hitman to get him killed.
One of the stars of Ghost Adventurers got a very alarming phone call. And the essence was this. Aaron Goodwin was told by police detectives that his wife put a hit out on him, wanted to kill him, and was trying to do so by enlisting the help of a man who is in prison for murdering his parents and doing all sorts of other heinous things. And that somehow she struck up a relationship with this guy while he was behind bars, and ultimately asked him to find a hitman on the outside to do in her husband. It is a crazy story.
Crazy story. So the guy that Victoria, Aaron's wife, was speaking to is a guy named Grant Amato. And his case is pretty famous in Florida because he killed his parents and his brother because he essentially fell in love with a webcam model on the internet and used over $200,000 of their money to pay for webcam services. And essentially they sent him to like a rehab facility. He got out. He got in a fight with them and ended up murdering them. Well, anyways, she got in touch. She saw there's a true crime documentary about this guy. She saw the documentary and essentially struck up a friendship with him. And she says she became pen pals with him in jail. This leads to...
I'm sorry for laughing, but it's just
crazy.
so crazy.
So she's like, wow, this is interesting. I like this guy.
Essentially, and that's at least what she's told cops, is she reached out to him. They were pen pals. So Grant had a legal phone, like a mobile cell phone in prison that was confiscated. They back in October, they go through his phone in December and find this communication between him and Victoria and realize that they had been planning to have Aaron killed while he was filming Ghost Adventures. Victoria was sending the guy in jail, Grant, his location, where he was going to be, and Grant was then contacting a hitman outside of jail that was supposed to essentially kill Aaron.
And pay him $11,000. And at least according to one of the text messages, my understanding is, Devin, that she made a down payment of $2,500, according to cops.
She had, through a PayPal account, had paid $2,500, but they allegedly had put together $11,000 together. That once the job was finished, that's how much they were going to pay this guy. When cops confronted Victoria at her house at the end of last week about all this, she essentially said she was having marriage problems with Aaron at the time. She was just pen pals with this guy, and yes, she did fantasize about being with this other guy, Grant, but that ultimately she didn't want her husband killed, and she believed that when she sent the $2,500, it was for a cell phone for Grant.
A $2,500 cell phone? Well, wait a minute. He already had a cell phone because that's how she was communicating with him.
But then it was confiscated. And then did she say that she didn't remember sending these messages?
She alleged that some of the messages she didn't remember sending, then she fessed up to sending some of them, but ultimately said she didn't want her husband killed. And clearly, the one thing we don't know is what ended up happening with this hitman, because this was supposed to happen in October when Ghost Adventures was filming in Barstow, and obviously Aaron was still alive. And actually, the cell phone got confiscated a day after the hit was supposed to actually happen, so no clue what ended up happening with the hitman.
You know what's really interesting about that? That's a good defense to say if she really did intend to do it, it didn't happen. So she's saying, I never intended all along. I'm not sure if that's going to fly with a jury, but it didn't happen.
Do you think you would forget, though, if you asked a murderer to help murder your husband?
She was busy.
You don't think that's a message? I can't remember asking him that.
This is just a crazy. Crazy
and you
story.
would think this guy, Aaron's got to have some serious trust issues going forward.
You would think, right?
Yeah.
I have a feeling this marriage is not long for the world.
Hi, this is Alyssa from New York City. I think this story is so crazy. I can't wait to hear more about the potential motive that she would have to put a hit out on her spouse, because I fear that does make you a very bad person. But what a weird story. Can't wait to learn more.
Well, there's going to be another documentary.
Yeah, well, that's probably going to be a big Netflix show at some point. Let's go to another case that has, of course, been a huge story for decades when it comes to murderers. Scott Peterson. So remember, he's convicted of killing his wife, Lacey, and their unborn child so many years ago. Well, he's behind bars still. He was playing a pickleball game.
Go figure.
And apparently got so aggressive with the pickleball.
No, he wasn't aggressive. What he did was he hit the ball in the yard there, and it flew off in the wrong direction and hit another inmate.
Okay.
Hit another inmate, yeah.
So then that inmate goes up to him, and he got beaten up pretty bad.
Yeah, got beaten up pretty bad. Didn't go to the hospital, but, you know... They got me at pickleball. I mean,
this is your thing.
It's shocking to learn that they even have pickleball at prison.
Right.
I mean, this is the prison that's near Sacramento, where he's from. But here's the thing: usually, when somebody is serving a sentence that has to do with, some kind of murder towards a child, towards a woman, which he's got both strikes there. Usually, those people have a hard time in prison and become targets. Look, was this related to that? Unclear. But we know that the person that he hit with the pickleball was totally set off. So this could just be something that was maybe bubbling and boiling behind bars. And then just when this other person had the chance to go after Scott, maybe he took his opportunity then.
Hi, my name is Kyron and I'm from Columbus. So I'm guessing that maybe he might want to pursue a different activity that doesn't involve any type of physical contact, maybe knitting, maybe jump rope. But, with his type of charges, he might want to avoid any trouble at all costs. Clearly, people don't like him in there.
The celebrities are targets in prison. They are.
Yeah.
Taking a break.
Up next,
wow.
Mel Gibson wants his gun back. Apparently, some people in the Trump administration want to help him do that, but there's a fight internally over whether he should. A Department of Justice employee says she lost her job because of Mel Gibson. We'll explain what we're talking about coming up. Mel Gibson wants to get his gun rights back, and there's a big fight apparently in the Trump administration over that. So there is a attorney, a U.S. pardon attorney. Her name is Elizabeth Oyer. And 2 weeks ago, she was put on a group tasked with coming up with a list of names to return their gun rights. She did not have the name Mel Gibson on her list. The Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, said, you know what? It'd be a good idea if you put Mel Gibson on that list. She didn't. And then she lost her job.
She got canned. So you may remember back in 2011, Mel was convicted of assaulting, battering his then girlfriend, Oksana Grigorieva, knocked out a couple of her teeth. And she was convicted of domestic violence, a misdemeanor, but he had to surrender his gun and his gun rights. So now somehow he was not even on the list that she was looking at. And Todd comes in and says, at him.
Well, and we know that he's a big Trump fan.
Take a look at the video.
We have some video of him speaking at Mar-a-Lago. He was recently named a special ambassador to Hollywood. On that list was Sylvester Stallone, Jon Voight, and Mel Gibson. We know he's a big conservative. He's pushing the recall of Gavin Newsom here. And clearly there were folks high up in the administration, maybe even the president himself, who were pushing to get Mel Gibson his gun rights back. So here's a statement from that a fired attorney, Elizabeth Oyer, to the New York Times. She says this: a senior DOJ official essentially explained to me that Mel Gibson has a personal relationship with President Trump, and that should be sufficient basis for me to make a recommendation, and that I would be wise to make that recommendation.
It's pretty remarkable. Liz Oyer is a pretty prominent attorney in the Department of Justice, in charge of vetting pardons that whatever administration wants to have done. So she was presented with this list, and she went through the list, and not on there was Mel Gibson. It seems because he was convicted of domestic violence, which she considered, as most attorneys do, to be a crime that would not be worthy of returning their gun rights to. But when the Trump administration got heard about that, I mean, this idea that it may or may not have come from Trump, we know the relationship that exists there. He's not been shy about it. Donald Trump hasn't. And so she was instructed to curry favor with the administration by adding him to the list. And when she refused out of principle, she was terminated.
And, it's so interesting that, we're working on something right now. You know who this benefits in a weird way? You know what benefits? Diddy. And I'll tell you why.
Okay. Didn't expect that turn.
I know, but I've been doing some research and thinking about it. When you look really at both sides now, that you've got Democrats and Republicans saying the Justice Department is weaponized against particular people. And sometimes, it works to the benefit of the person, and sometimes they get prosecuted because they're on the other side. So both sides have been making that argument. And I think there is such a distrust of the Justice Department now that underlying distrust is going to help any defendant who's being singled out and prosecuted.
Harvey, I don't disagree with you as a general matter, but in this case, there's really no dispute that Mel Gibson beat the crap out of this woman and was convicted for it and lost his gun rights as a result. This just seems to be a singling out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes it works against the person. In this case, when you say weaponized, what I'm suggesting is sometimes you cut him a break, like Trump cut Eric Adams a break. It works kind of both ways.
But it seems like in both those cases a bit of a quid pro quo. Eric Adams, you help me out and do what I want in New York, I'll help you here. Mel Gibson, you be my special ambassador, I help you here, and doling out favors. The whole concept of the Justice Department is it's supposed to be independent from the executive branch.
Right.
There's supposed to be a wall.
True.
But that never actually was put into practice, and Trump doesn't necessarily see it that way.
And on the other side, you got Joe Biden saying that the Justice Department was weaponized against his son, Hunter Biden, when he got prosecuted.
And so he undermines so much of what the Democrats had worked so hard to establish for so many years by doing that, not only for his son, but for his brother, his sister, and everybody else he seemed to care about.
Yeah.
Patrice from Virginia. It's just very scary, the whole concept that you can be good at your job, be known for being good at your job, and then you're prosecuted for it because you then get fired. If Mel Gibson had that brutal of an attack on an ex, somebody that he loved, I think without question, there's no reason why he should get his guns back.
We're living in crazy times, folks, and we are going to take a break. When we come back, there is a bill in the Texas state legislature that would make it a crime, not just a crime, a felony, for somebody who is trans to say that their sex is something other than their sex at birth.
On government documents.
We are going to get into a couple of the sponsors of this. Welcome back to TMZ Live. So there is a bill that has been introduced in the state legislature in Texas. It caught my attention. So it's pretty short. So this is the essence of it. It's called gender identity fraud. And the bill goes this way. Anybody who makes a false or misleading statement to either a government entity or a person's employer where they reveal their biological sex as not being the biological sex at birth is guilty of a felony. Now, what that means is if, for example, there is a transgender person who was born, say, a biological male, but they transition to a female, if they say that they are female, that could violate the law. They could be imprisoned for a felony. So this is eyebrow raising, and it was introduced in the Texas state legislature. There are members who are supporting the bill, and two of them are joining us right now.
One of them is named Steve Toth. The other joining us right now is named Representative Nate Schatzline. And gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Why is this necessary?
Yeah, I'll take it from the top, and thank you guys for having us on. Look, it's an interesting topic. We live in a day and age where common sense is not so common anymore, and we live in a day and age where we've watched time and time again as there have been horrific situations. We have a mental health crisis on our hands in our country, and specifically in Texas among students, and we're watching as biological men are invading women's safe spaces, women's bathrooms, taking sports opportunities away, such as Riley Gaines. In Loudoun County, we saw as a young lady was sexually assaulted by a trans student. And right here, right now, look, we just firmly believe that if you can go to prison for committing tax fraud, how much more important is it to protect our daughters in the public school system, to protect our wives in the workplace, to protect our young ladies from anyone who might be a predator to them. And so we want to make sure on documentation that we understand what we're working with, who we're dealing with, so that people can't be deceived into women being violated.
So and let's be really clear on this. This does not criminalize in any way, shape, or form being trans. If you want to be trans, you're an adult, you're 26 years old, and you want to be trans, this doesn't do anything to criminalize it. What it simply means, though, is that you can't change your records, nor can you lie on state documents about what your biological gender sex is.
What is the point and value, say, of telling somebody that they have to say they are male if they've transitioned and feel like a female, have done transition surgery to become a female, dress as a female would dress? What is the value or purpose in having them disclose their biological status at birth?
You're still able, for every reason you just mentioned, you're still able to present yourself to the world that way. You're simply not allowed to change it on government documents.
Hold on, that's not my question. My question isn't what the bill says. What I'm asking is, what's the purpose of that?
I'm trying to tell you. So one of the reasons that we heard last year when we looked at last session about changing birth certificates as an example, is another example of this bill. We heard from multiple law enforcement sources that if your name is Tony and you want to change your name to Tate and you want to change your gender on your birth certificate from male to female, you can dress the same way, but you're identifying supposedly as a female. If you also have a history of sex offenses, now it's nearly impossible to screen for people. We have thousands of people on the sex registry list, tens of thousands in the state of Texas. They could tomorrow change their name and gender on legal documents, and we would have no way of tracking them.
So, for example, Caitlyn Jenner, one of the biggest supporters of President Trump, who has no history of being a predator to anybody and is a proud Republican. If Caitlyn Jenner comes into Texas and puts on a certificate that Caitlyn Jenner is a female, you think Caitlyn Jenner should be guilty of a felony and go to jail?
I think Caitlyn Jenner will follow the law. And I think Caitlyn Jenner, along with many trans people, along with many gay people, are against the grooming of our children and against this infectious lie that's being told out there that there are 60 different genders and that you can change your gender. She is one of the first ones that has said men should not be competing in girls' sports. You probably picked a bad example with Caitlyn Jenner.
I actually think Caitlyn Jenner, in fact, I'm really angry at Elex because I was going to ask that question. So Caitlyn Jenner is actually a really good example. So if Caitlyn Jenner says, yeah, I was born a man, how does that help you determine if Caitlyn Jenner is a predator?
I think you're missing the point. I think what we're trying to do here is ensure that at the very end of the day, we can protect our daughters. And so what I'm not
But how are you protecting your daughter?
Let me finish. What I'm not concerned about is Caitlyn Jenner coming to Texas and what she's going to put down on that piece of paper, other than the fact that we're perpetuating a mental illness when we're doing so, of which the government should not be doing.
So you're viewing, okay, hold on. I want to seize on that because I think that's really important. So really, the baseline of what you're looking at is you believe that anybody who is transgender, who identifies differently from their biological birth gender, is mentally ill.
I believe that gender dysphoria is absolutely a mental illness. And sadly, because we perpetuated it and normalized it to such a degree, people no longer see it that way across our country. And here's what we have to figure out. Is that do we believe that there are only two genders, or are we going to continue to perpetuate the lie that you can change your gender and continue to amplify this when we know that those with gender dysphoria have a higher likelihood of committing suicide, but once they get those gender affirming care or those surgeries and take hormone blockers, they're now 19 times more likely to commit suicide. And so we don't have the efficacy of these results to say, hey, this works. What we're seeing is that these tactics, normalizing this, is not helping individuals.
So this bill was just introduced. We're just at the early stages of this. Have you talked to your other colleagues about this? Do you think you have the votes for this to pass both houses and be signed by Governor Abbott?
We definitely have the votes in the Texas House to do this. We definitely have the votes in the Texas Senate to do this. Whether or not we can get it to the finish line in the governor's desk is another question. It's very hard to pass legislation in Texas. We're only here for 5 months, once every 2 years, and yet we see the same amount of legislation in 5 months that other states do in 2 years. It's going to be a challenge.
So you're viewing people who either have transitioned or want to transition as mentally ill. I hear you. Does it seem a little draconian to you that you would take what you consider to be a mentally ill person and imprison them because their mental illness, the way you see it, leads them to answer a question that you think is deceptive, that the remedy would be to make them a felon and put them in prison?
We only have compassion and love for anyone that's going through this. And the reality is,
you'd put him in prison. You'd put him in prison.
Well, to be clear, we're talking about someone who breaks the law.
That's someone that breaks the law. And what this is really truly about, Europe is decades ahead of the United States on this issue. And Europe 2 years ago hit the pause button, and now they're in full-blown reverse because they're starting to see empirical data that they are hurting people. When someone thinks that they're a female when they're really a male, 70% of these cases, they're autistic. 95% of these cases, you see cutting, you see clinical depression. Treating a mental illness does not include cutting off body parts. And we want to do everything we can to say we love you, we're going to walk with you, but we're not going to aid you, we're not going to help you.
And so the next step, based on what you're saying, is to outlaw any transition surgery.
Well, we've already done that for children because the data is
No, for adults, because of what you're saying.
We're not. This is simply an issue of making sure that you can't commit fraud on somebody else.
And the reality is, this isn't, one of the only things we're working on. One of the things we're working on is making sure that Texas truly is a pro-life state, which means we're not just pro-birth, but we're actually pro-life. So we're working to make sure that adoption is free in the state of Texas this session, HB 1071, and Steve's got a bill as well.
We want to make it easier for communities of faith to adopt children, to get a loving home, a forever home. And the reality is that 80% of the people in the United States that are in prisons, 80% of them have spent time in foster care. And we have a responsibility to roll our sleeves up and take these kids in and give them a forever home. And that's what we're trying to tackle this year in the Texas House.
Okay. Look, we really appreciate both of you guys coming on. We're going to follow this, obviously. My mind's a little bit blown, but thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
You sharing your perspective.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, guys. Okay. We just did that. We are going to take a break.
When we come back, Britney Spears is hanging out with her son. Why she's so impressed with his piano playing. Stay with us. Britney Spears is spending more time with her son. We know for many years that they were estranged, and her son, Jaden, is apparently at her house playing the piano, and she is a very proud mama. Take a look.
That's sick. Well, that was really good. Ah! My son just played. Oh my God!
Totally.
I felt it in my bones and my heart and my lungs and my ass and my throat and I'm scared.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello. Whoa.
Look, it's really sweet, and there are people who are cynics who are saying this relationship kind of blossomed after Kevin lost all child support when he turned 18. And I think that's a cynical view. He's trying to reestablish a relationship with his mom. And it doesn't seem like the other kid, Sean Preston, is following suit. He's in Hawaii, as far as we know, still.
Jaden also moved back to LA after his 18th birthday last year in September. So I think we're going to be starting to see him really working on repairing this relationship with Britney now that he's back in LA after moving back from Hawaii.
And launching a music career, which is his goal, which is one of the reasons why there are people who are cynical about this whole thing. But look, I just personally, it's just nice that she's got somebody in her life right now, because after Sam moved out and she's got this on again, off again boyfriend / landscaper, and, you know, she's kind of alone.
And somebody you can trust, right? I mean, her relationship with her family itself has been so frayed. It's nice to have somebody you can trust that hopefully will be there for you.
And if they're bonding over music, a shared passion that they have together, I don't see why that's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just, you know, she's so isolated that, you know, the dancing videos and everything else that you see, which are entertaining, it's the way she connects with people, that she connects with them on Instagram, but she doesn't have real friends. She doesn't have relatives who come over. She's kind of estranged from them. So it's just, I don't know, there's a sadness
and
there.
even the way she reacted is not the way sort of a normal human being would react. I feel it in my ass, and other comments like that was a little odd.
Right, but at least he's around, which, you know, is a good thing.
I wish her well.
Hey guys, my name is Joy Daly, calling from New York, and I am so elated to see Britney Spears bonded with her son. The apple don't fall far from the tree. He has his mother's talent. He's working on music. I wouldn't be surprised if these two were to collab on some actual music and put it out, which would be amazing. And I'm also hoping that he calms her down from doing all those bikini dance videos. Maybe if he's around more, she's going to do more social mom stuff and less like crazy Britney stuff.
Yeah. Do you just kind of sit there on the sofa and kind of zone at the fireplace?
Yes, I love it's very tranquil and it puts me in a very relaxed state of mind.
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
I like it. I like it a lot.
well
but it's not a real fireplace, right?
Of course not. Does anyone do real fire anymore, guys? Come on, everything's electric.
No, we did a story yesterday, and I wondered the same. Oh, Brittany.
I was going to say.
That's a real
No, I was going to
fireplace.
say the only person that does it is Brittany.
Brittany, that's...
And I don't think she's doing those sort of dances by her fake fireplace.
Right.
Maybe you are, but you don't have to do it for her.
Right, you don't have to answer this. Okay, we got to take a break. When we come back, Drake has gotten hard. He is warning people there is a new chapter coming out, and it is Drake, the guy you don't want to mess with.
Drake is dropping some hints about his next chapter, and there's sort of an ominous post that has some fans worried, kind of concerned about what could be next. So
I'm not buying that.
This next chapter may leave you feeling uneasy, but I hope you see my honesty as clarity, not charity, that answers some questions, especially about the unanswered texts you've been sending me. We don't know if this is a reaction to Kendrick Lamar, of course. And
of course it is.
Very, very public diss to the entire world at the Super Bowl, which we have not heard from Drake in terms of an actual response to that yet.
Move on. It's like you lost this one, and you're not going to somehow pull it out of the fire. I mean, you just lost. And the best thing to do is just move on like it didn't happen. And eventually people are going to say, okay, yeah, I remember that, but it's not going to be top of mind.
We've had nothing but empty threats since this rap battle has, dwindled, and Drake's the one that's keeping it going. He just had a #1 album, but he's the one who keeps bringing this up. A lot of people are just saying, let your music do the talking. Stop bringing it up. Just move on and, do you.
He can't do it. He can't. He lost so badly. He can't. No, I really mean it. He can't let go of this thing. I mean,
and he's so successful. Think about it.
He's
everything Drake puts out has been so big.
Successful. It's like, stop it.
I feel like Drake is all over the place right now. It's giving more at Degrassi Drake. I think the people's behind him is keep pushing this beef. And
come on, you think it's the people behind him, or it's not Drake?
Yes, Drake got an ego too, but I really think it's the people behind him. That keep encouraging him that he's Drake. He's this big. He's a phenom. So. I think he has new music. He's probably gonna drop new music towards Kendrick to continue it. So
if he does that would be crazy to do again. That would be crazy. He lost this. I mean, jeez. If he does that, he's gonna lose fans. What else you guys want to talk about?
Harvey Hall from North Florida, and I'm going to talk about Wendy Williams. And I think first and foremost, Wendy Williams is a media icon, and it's so great to finally see her having a strong support system that's advocating for her freedom. I'm really hoping that these test results are going to be the first step towards her getting the freedom that she needs and deserves. And if she has Joe Tacopina by her side, I am sure he's going to do his absolute best to win her case, especially as we've seen his success as of late.
That's the attorney who was with A$AP Rocky, who Wendy hopes will be her attorney, but hasn't been approved yet.
I'm not sure that's going to happen. I am not sure that's going to happen. One more.
Hi, my name is Zach Ross, coming in from Huntington Beach, California, on Aaron Goodwin. It's always sad to see these sort of stories. The thing is, I don't get is, I understand this is a very early marriage. It's only been a couple years, but, people should just end it before it gets to this stage.
And they should absolutely end it.
I've been in some bad relationships, but nothing where they're hiring a hitman to try to kill you.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. We got to take a break. When we come back, you want to buy a vowel? How about an O? Because the puzzle is tattoo. And wait till you hear what Vanna White did to herself. Okay, I have a question for you. Suppose you had a kid and you sent the kid to NYU.
Okay.
And you paid $90,000 a year.
Okay.
And the kid says when she graduates, Mom, Dad, I want to be a tattoo artist. You would say,
good for you. I love my child.
That's very understanding. Well, that happened to Vanna White with her daughter Gigi, and here's what Vanna says.
I'm about to get my first tattoo. I have a beautiful daughter, Gigi, who is a tattoo artist. I might pass out. Okay, this is it. Okay, there we go. It looks perfect. Just like you. Aww.
By the way, check out some of Gigi's work. She is a fabulous tattoo artist. She is amazing. And the good news, Vanna White makes $10 million a year so she can pay for the NYU.
We're working 34 days a year. 34 days a year for Wheel of Fortune. $10 million. The best job in all of television.
Without a doubt. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
And we will see you tomorrow.